What's going on, everybody? Gunnar here, and today I just want to do a very simple, very quick deer hair tutorial to kind of get that kind of perfect zoo cougar shaped head. So basically what I have going on is I have a Ahrex size 4 classic streamer hook in the vise, kind of following that zoo cougar style, and this is basically the back hook of a super jerk. So if you want to know how to tie that, go find that video. Maybe I'll throw a link in the description. But it's just bucktail, EP craft fur brush, and then a craft fur wing. So what you have to understand is basically deer hair, right? This is off a hide. This is a hairline dubbin primo deer hair strip. The primo is just talking about the length. This is about 12 inches long by 3 inches wide. And this is a really high kind of quality section that I have here, but I'm going to show you how to stack this without any tools. We're going to do one collar stack, which is going to be straight on top, and then we're going to do 2 spins moving forward. I'm going to be extremely thorough because this is something I struggled with for a very long time, and hopefully just from watching this you will understand everything, and if you don't, ask me questions, because this is something that, you know, heads are something that I always struggled with. You know, I could do whatever I wanted for a body, but I never knew how to finish a fly, so this is why I'm showing you. So I cut this straight off the hide. Now this has a lot of crap in this lower section that's basically insulative fibers that aren't going to flare, and they have a tendency to cut your thread. So you want to just grab the tips, you can flick this out, you can use a comb, you can just pull it out. Comb this real quick and good to go. Now I want this collar to kind of be nice and sparse. That's one thing I can't really convey to you, is the density. People use pencil thicknesses all the time. If you imagine holding a pencil in between your fingers, that's what it should feel like. Now something I want on this collar is I want my tips to be aligned, because I want the illusion of kind of either pectoral fins or a sweeping back head or gill plates or something big. This is a sculpin imitation. So what you can do without a hair stacker is you simply loosely grab these, hold them upside down, and then you want to just drop them into the palm of your hand. And so my right hand, which has the deer hair fibers, like, I almost have no pressure on these whatsoever. And I'm just lightly dropping them, re-grab, lightly dropping them, and basically I'm just stacking these tips in the palm of my hand, so that at the end of the day they are all the same length. And you can see I have this nice kind of color line that's indicating that all my tips are the same length. Now I'm going to measure this off. I like this to be about 1/3 of the length of my body. Going to come up and do a perfectly straight cut. Super clean, super kind of straightforward. Rest this right on top of the hook, and you're not going to want this to rotate. Now the trick to just basically tying with anything is you need to do a loose wrap that has no pressure on it whatsoever, and then you apply pressure. So the pressure goes straight down vertically. Instead of pulling across with pressure, you can see I get like a rotation on the deer hair. Instead you want to come loose until you are vertical. Add a little tension, loose, add a little tension, loose, and then I'm going to cinch that down while holding that on top of the hook. Now I like to do a handful of wraps through my deer hair butts for durability. And it doesn't matter how perfect you did this, because we're basically going to come through, clean all of this up. Just use regular scissors. If you have hair that's too dense, check it out. You just cut it off. It's not a big deal. And what I want is I want my hair only on top of the hook. You can see I have a little bit of a mess down here below it. I'm just going to take my thumb and my 4 fingers underneath the hook so that it can't spread around, and shove my thumb into that. You can see I'll get, and basically all that does is it pushes the hair from directly on top, and it starts to distribute it off to the side. So I get hair on the sides now, and not so much straight on top. Then I like to take my thread loosely through this kind of clumps, and I just put a light thread dam kind of on top of those fibers, and that'll slick that deer hair back and create that nice kind of professional looking collar. Now the reason why we cut off our butts and didn't use them is because the deer hair will flare, and if you try to incorporate the front into the collar, you get this colic and it makes a head separation, and you don't get this nice blend going back from the head into your collar region. Now I'm going to take 2 light clumps, maybe just under a pencil or a pencil. Again, grabbing the tips and combing these out, get all that junk out of there. Now instead of aligning the tips, I'm going to align the bases. So you take your bases, which they should be pretty close because we just cut them off the hide, lightly tamp my hand into them while kind of releasing on my left hand here. And then I'm just going to come in and cut these tips off. So we have no tips whatsoever. Now this is, I think, the trickiest part to this is how to spin deer hair. And so I'm going to hold this in the midpoint on top, transfer hands. Now when you come in and you put that loose wrap completely slack, you see all that slack? Completely loose wrap, little bit of tension. Another loose wrap, little bit of tension, and we'll go for a third one. Now instead of just pulling right away, switch bobbin hands real quick, support your hook eye, and push down on that hair. Now give that a straight pull. And what you did is that hair, so this is going to be my hook shank. I'm going to back this up real quick. Make sure that's still on the right focus point. So here's your hook shank, right? We just put a whole bunch of deer hair on top of that hook shank. Now if you go to spin that, it'll kind of rotate as a mass and you'll get most of the hair on one side, which looks really bad. To get the hair even, you would put 2.5 loose turns on that, and then I pushed my thumb on top of that hair, distributed it around the hook shank, and then spun it. And you get a perfectly even distribution of hair. Now I'm going to shove that back with my fingers. You can use a hair stacker if you want. I don't want my head to be that tight. I want it to shed water nice and loose the way kind of Kelly designed it. And I should have walked you through how to bring your thread up and through, but I'll do it on the next one because I got distracted. So we got that pushed back, everything's looking beautiful. I'm going to come in with a second stack, an equal amount of hair. Again, I'm going to clean out these butts. You don't need any of that kind of shorter insulative fibers. Stacking the deer hair, butts first against my palm, cutting all the tips off. Again, going to rest this right at the midpoint. Change hands, completely loose wrap. Now check this out. I have some trapped fibers in here. You want to make your thread really small so that by the time you get around your hook shank, you're tight to those fibers. Pull out a little bit, go around, tight to those fibers. Go around, tight to those fibers. Now again, switching hands, supporting my hook eye and pushing on that mass is moving around that hook shank, and then I can give that a straight pull. And that straight pull is basically going to secure that right tight to the shank so that I don't have any slack in there. Pack that back, add some tension. Now when you draw your thread through, you don't want to trap any fibers. And the trick is you kind of want to brush this out. I like to hold them in place and I wiggle my thread through straight up to the hook eye. And you want to pull it straight out and then up. Now this can be a little tricky, but basically you just have to move that hair back from the hook eye, and that, yeah, I don't know, that's a hard one to get used to. Catch that hook eye and we'll throw a half hitch in there, and then I'll finger whip on that. Cool. So that is a collar and a spun head. And I think the biggest thing beyond that is most people, they don't push that hair around that head and then spin it. They try to spin it from the top around and you get a really uneven distribution. And that's, I think, one of the things that is the biggest thing to take away from that. Once this is on here, I kind of like to rough this up. Make sure it's all kind of nice and flared and crazy. I'm going to take this out of the vise. Rotate my vise out of the way. So I like to do all my trimming in my hand. Not everybody likes to. And I like to just hang on to a razor blade loosely. This is a Wilkinson sword. Let's see if I can get this. I'll preset this focal point here. So I like to use a Wilkinson sword single edge razor blade. Some fly shops started carrying these. Hairline started distributing them, so you'll see these hopefully more common, but you can get them at Walgreens and Rite Aid and stuff like that, Walmart. And basically, holding my fly upside down, I do a straight cut right on the bottom. Take no prisoners, just go for it. Kind of bleed that into my belly here. Go nice and slow, don't go super fast or aggressive. I find it easiest if you hold the razor blade at like a 45-degree angle, so that as you pull that across, it's almost like a draw stroke, and it physically cuts the fibers. If you just push, you can get into trouble because it'll catch its edge and want to dig in. But if you hold it at a 45 and then slide, it cuts all that hair perfectly nice and clean right on the edge. So we have a nice flat bottom. That was super easy, right? Did not take much time at all. Try to show that to you guys. Now, trimming the head, obviously if you take too much hair away, you kind of, you dig your own grave as soon as you do that. I like to follow the angle of the hook eye. This is a hook down hook eye. Follow that up and just contour. My blade is perfectly flat when I do this. Just straight up, I go straight back to the collar. I'm holding my collar down. You can see that this is my collar. I physically trap those fibers with my fingers so that I can't cut them off. Straight up, straight back. Cut the head into the collar and then flatten the top of it with side cuts. Meaning I'm pushing and pulling the blade sideways to the hair. Then you can kind of just round out the face just a little bit. Now here's the true secret. The secret comes from the scissors. And so you take your scissor, and I'm going against the grain. You can see my hand is behind this head. And so when I make this cut, it's going to be perfectly straight and true to whatever I set it at. I'll show you that. So I flip the fly around so that again I'm against the grain here. Going perfectly straight up. Now this fly, well, you might want to square up these edges real quick. Flatten these out. Now that's basically a drunken and disorderly head right there. You can, well, kind of. But that fly square nose like that, that'll fish just fine. Right? We have this nice sloped head. We have this beautiful collar. The head bleeds into the collar. There's nothing, I mean, like, this is completely fishable. And we haven't spent that much time on it, but I like to come in 45 these right angles so I get a nice kind of gentle sweep to my heads. Again, this is all scissor work. And now you have some right angles, right? We cut this head basically at a right angle. It's hard to show these right angles, but you come in with your razor blade and you just round them out. You just 45 that right angle and you get the most perfect zoo cougar head every time. Then if you're like me, kind of just clean that up. Come from behind, clean that up. Come from up top, clean that up. Booyah. That is a perfect zoo cougar head. And that took me forever to learn how to tie. Literally years of my life to figure out how to tie a zoo cougar head that come out the same every single time. And pushing that hair around has been the biggest help for me whatsoever. It gets the hair completely even, and you can hear Kelly talk about it. He has the Slide-In's got a YouTube channel, which I highly recommend. He goes into some better information, more in depth on selecting hair and stuff like that. And really, what you should definitely listen to it, but he talks about this. You'll see him, he'll hold his hair on top of here before he goes to spin it, and he talks about pushing the hair with his material hand, and that's where the missed information comes from. He doesn't switch hands like I do and use my right thumb, but he pushes it down with his material hand as he begins to draw on it, so that it gets this even distribution, completely, like, look, I don't know if you can see the density, but the density on either side are identical. And it's because we pushed that hair completely around the hook shank and then spun it to get our one clean wrap of thread around that hair. So that is a very simple Zoo Cougar variation. Chartreuse belly, I'm probably going to fish this for smallmouth. But hopefully that helps. Sometimes when I do videos, I don't always know what I'm talking. Like, I hear the words come out of my mouth, but they're not predetermined, so it's a surprise when I get to watch these videos back. And then you can come in, put eyes on here. I'll show you that, actually. I like to use, on my Zoo Cougar heads, I find a 4mm eye is just about perfect. So I'm going to come in here. Actually, I'm going to go small. I got some dragon eyes that I think will look cool. These are a Flyman Fishing Company's Dragon Eye. It's part of their Surface Seducer series, which is their new kind of foam popperhead style stuff. And I'm just going to stick these on top. Come in, use a gel super glue on the hair. It kind of holds it the best. And I like to put it kind of, if you just look down at the head, you can very easily visualize where those dabs of super glue should go. Probably should have done a darker color so it's got a little bit more contrast, but. And something I'll show you guys. This is a Deer Creek laser diode torch, something like that. See that? Laser. It's a laser, and the front nozzle actually has like a little diffuser on it, and it kind of breaks up the light pattern over a wider area. Or you can take it off and you get this crazy, extremely powerful curing torch, and it's on the cheaper end of the spectrum. It doesn't cost that much money. I think it does awesome. I used it the past probably 2 weeks now for all of my eye work, and it's been absolutely awesome to work with. So check that out. Coming with some UV Diamond Fine from Deer Creek, and then we'll just absolutely torch that into place. Cover those edges, make sure those eyes can't get pulled up, and that resin soaks into that deer hair and makes a really secure bond that will last a long time. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something there, or find something useful, or heard a little nugget that's going to change the way you approach the deer hair. You don't need a hair packer, you don't need a stacker, you don't need anything to do these kind of Zoo Cougar heads. You can do it all with your hands, and I guess I used a comb, so that was helpful, but it'll get you these perfect Zoo Cougar heads. Nice, sparse. They're not going to absorb a lot of water. They're going to shed water in the back cast. You have this nice sweeping front angle by matching the angle of the hook down eye. You kind of make this little diver head that is going to want to displace a lot of water. We kind of have these rough edges on the bottoms that are going to catch and dig and create a little bit of kind of like belly wobble to it. And it's just a super effective pattern. So check out Kelly Gallup Zoo Cougar, and hopefully that head tutorial helps you out and gets these bugs rolling off your vices. So thanks for watching, and have a good one.